everyone. My name is Jennifer DiMarco, and I am here today to speak with mystery author Diane M. McPhee. Diane is published by the non-profit publishing house Blue Forge Press, my favorite publishing house in the whole wide world, and I'd be willing to bet one of Diane's favorites too. Diane, not only has Diane created the incredible detective Alan Sharp, but one of the things that I adore about Diane that I find incredibly unique among the literally dozens of mystery authors I have ever interviewed or toured with is that this, taken by surprise, book one in the Sharp Crime Mystery series is Diane's first book. Not her first mystery, though it is also that, but her first book ever written was written during 2020 when Diane just decided to wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to become a mystery novelist. And then she promptly wrote 2, 3, and 4, and I heard it rumored during our last interview that she is working on So today we're going to talk to Diane and we're going to do a 20 questions. The 20 questions you should ask any mystery writer, according to all of the associations of mystery writers on the planet. Diane, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
We are at Charlie's Queer Books in Fremont in Seattle today, and we just thought this was really nice. Now, Diane, Alan is not gay, the detective.
No.
But why? What is the tie? What's the connection
with the store?
Yeah.
The store?
Yeah.
The person who died designed drag queen dresses, and his best friend was Jerome, who was one of the drag queens. And their relationship was very important, and important to the mystery too. So we have this wonderful character of Jerome who misses his friend Margot, who died. And so that's kind of the experience. And so Alan, Detective Alan Sharp, gets involved with this group to try and solve the mystery of who killed Margot.
Justice, guys.
Right.
I really love this because, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why both Diane and I love Blue Forge Press, is that at Blue Forge Press, it's such an incredibly diverse group of authors all over the political spectrum, authors all over gender, age, economic status, and I'm sure as you guys are seeing, if you're following several of these interviews that we've done with Diane, with Dakota Fox, with Mark Robine, that is very true. I don't think Blue Forge has any authors that have more in common than maybe 3 or 4 little elements of their entire lives, but all of these authors get along, and all of these books are actually important because Blue Forge Press doesn't just publish books that are commercially viable. What they're looking for is authors who have been marginalized or topics that are not getting the kind of attention that mainstream publishing houses give books. So that is really cool. So we see the press as more of a movement as opposed to just a commercial entity. So that's enough about the press though. Let's now talk about Diane. Diane, your first question for today. What inspired you to write mysteries?
You know, that's a good question because I wasn't always a mystery reader.
Oh.
It kind of evolved, and you know how your life evolves where you start with the classics and then you go on to what is bothering you about life and about your experience, and so you go from the Brontes to Virginia Woolf, and then you go like, I think I need something else in my life that would be a little, I don't know, conflicting or something. And so then I started reading mysteries. And I thought, I'm kind of intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued by mysteries. And I always wanted to kind of figure it out. And
That was going to be my next question. When you read, do you try to figure it out as you go?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so I thought, maybe I could write this mystery. Plus, I had a good mystery in mind.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And so when you are reading a mystery by another author, do you find yourself pausing and like trying to, whodunit, trying to figure it out?
Absolutely. I feel like now I'm analyzing as I go, and I'm like, right now, why did they bring this person in?
Yes.
Or where are we going now? How come we're on this street?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
And I'm so intrigued. I'm so intrigued and so delighted.
Yes.
Delighted with how mystery authors rearrange their crime and their investigation. I love it. I love it.
The there's an adage around the office that is, you don't put a smoking gun, or rather don't put a gun on the mantle unless it's going to go off by the end of the story. But it's also true, though, equally true, that there are some things that we do as red herrings. We want people to be focused on the gun on the mantle, because that will take their attention away from the sword on the living room wall, or whatever it is. All right. It's going to turn into more than 20 questions at this rate.
Okay.
All right, number 2. How do you come up with the twists and turns in your plot?
As a writer and also a reader,
Yeah.
I know that we're going to have to turn in different directions. It just is how life goes. It's just life. And so when Detective Alan Sharp comes to a corner, he's got to make a decision. Do I turn or not?
Yeah.
And he does or he doesn't. And so I use the movement
Mm-hmm.
to create the twists and the turns. And it seems to work. And
Yeah.
it is kind of like osmosis.
It works.
It's kind of like, this is what you would do.
Yes.
This is what you would do.
So you try to just inhabit Alan and be like,
Absolutely.
what is an authentic
Absolutely.
human being, a detective really trying to solve this? What is he? Where is he? What is really going to drive him forward?
Exactly.
I like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that must be one of the reasons why, to me at least, Alan always does sound authentic. I never, even though I know you and we have worked together and we've attended workshops, I never think to myself, oh, this is Diane. It's always Alan. Oh, it's another story of Alan. And I think that really takes some doing. Because it's hard once you know an author to remove the author from the book, but Alan's voice is so strong.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I know the answer to this one, you guys, and if you've watched Diane's other interview, you will also know, but do you outline your story in advance, or do you let your plot evolve as you write?
I let the plot go. I just let it happen. And the outlining would be really nice and it probably would be very helpful, but I don't do it that way.
You don't need it.
Just let it go.
Yeah. Some
That's
authors
what I
need
do.
it, you guys. I mean, I'm not saying an author doesn't,
Right.
but
Exactly.
Diane doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even without a outline, if you guys can see these, Diane writes, they're not too different. Taken by Surprise was a little bit smaller, but she doesn't do like formula fiction. But even so, your pacing is always fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Her pacing is always fantastic. The stories really clip along, and they do come in roughly about the same length. So you know what you're getting into, and I like that. Question number 5, what is the hardest part about writing a mystery novel for you?
Well, since I have book number 5
Yeah.
all over my table at home, right now, I'm just thinking about it. And I've done research, I've written scenes,
Yeah.
and I just am thinking. And this is the hard part,
Yeah.
because I know that when I jump in, I've already got 12,000 words written. Okay, so that's I already know what happened.
12,000 words, that's where Diane is right now. So just so you guys know, in case you yourselves are not writers, a novel is officially 50,000 words or more. Anything less than 50,000 words in the general industry would be considered more a novella. So 12,000 words so far.
So far.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just taking time to think. This is a hard part because sometimes I think I should go back and research this, or I should bring in another character, and I'm just giving myself a rest.
Yes.
And I think that's a hard part for an author, for me,
Mm-hmm.
I should say for me,
It's okay. Yeah.
is not to jump back in and do kind of wild and crazy things.
Yeah.
Give it time. Let it simmer, and it's simmering right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I guess I'm just in a good mood about Blue Forge Press today. And I will say that is one of the things that as an author I appreciate about the press, is that the press does not set the deadlines. The senior editor of the press will say to us as the authors, we'll pitch an idea, or like in Diane's case, the press assumes she's working on, the next installment, unless the author says, I'm done with that series. But that when you turn the book in, that is when it is due. There isn't like this, you better get it in by December, you better get it in by you're trying to hit these marketing windows. Because again, as a nonprofit entity, a truly nonprofit entity where everyone are volunteers, there's more of a freedom because we're not wedded to, like, I don't particularly want to have to get my book out so that it's going to be on the shelves for Gay Pride Month. That doesn't really work with my, even as little as 5 years ago, that wouldn't have worked because we were homeschooling our kids still, things like that. With Diane, with her process, it is important that she take that breather, let the ideas ferment, because that's what I think also leads to Alan being so authentic, is it's not forced. You don't force his hand.
no.
Love that.
No.
Okay, question 6. How do you create suspense and keep readers guessing?
I thought about this question when you sent them to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, how am I doing that? Except it's my wanting to know. And because if I am questioning something,
Yeah.
if I'm going to let him ask that question, I am going to let Alan say, this isn't working. I don't know why. Let me review again. There's
Yeah.
something that's not happening. And I do that quite often in the books. It's like he sits back and goes, what is going on? And so that builds a suspense for, I think, readers. And it does for me when I
Yeah.
hear that someone else is like wondering, what's going on? And that helps build this whole question in your mind. And
I like that idea, Diane, that because you don't outline and you kind of let Alan kind of guide you, the story guide you, you let it ferment, you let it breathe. That idea of you could literally kind of write yourself into a corner. You could write yourself into this dead end, and then, well, how do we get out of here? So no wonder it sounds so authentic, because he really is. You're like, I have no idea.
what's going on?
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Question 7, you guys. Are your characters often based on real people, or are they all completely fictional?
Ellen Sharp is based on a very, very dear friend of mine. And he wrote a manual when he was 65 of how it felt to be 65. And he sent the manual to me, the manuscript to me. And I have used this manuscript to develop this wonderful character and how he feels about life now, about all the changes that is happening, what his future looks like. And so that person is always very dear to me and very dear to my heart. A couple other characters are very real to me. Maggie, who Alan meets and starts dating, is after a friend of mine who I knew years ago. We raised kids together, and then we lost track of each other. But she was such a fun, wonderful, warm, compassionate character that I have her in mind. She's in my head when I see Maggie or write about Maggie.
Yeah.
So some people, I met along the way, and maybe I'd say, oh, that's him, that's her. but basically the rest are made up.
Yeah.
People who I would like to be in my characters who I think probably they'd be great for this.
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
You know.
I like that. And again, I think it really works. And I mean, authors, we actually just literally yesterday, we were working with the film division, and one of the press authors came over who also works for the film division, that kind of straddles that line. And he was talking about loving to base characters on people he knows. And I think what's amazing is that that is a skill in and of itself. Basing a character on someone you know does not mean it's easy. And it does not automatically mean that that character will sound authentic. But in your case, and I think in this other author's case as well, you guys have really mastered that ability to find someone from your real life that you can bring in those little, the idiosyncrasies that make someone real.
Right. I know what he would say.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that. Okay. Question 8. How do you come up with red herrings, or do you, to mislead the reader without giving too much away?
I love it when I send my books to my sisters who
Yes.
read it, and they say, "Oh, I thought it was going to be this person," and I go, "Oh, really? Tell me why." And they'll tell me, and I'll go, "Yeah, I did too, but then I backed off from that person. I thought, he didn't do it. He didn't do it." And so I backed off, but I'm always thrilled when someone does the same thing. They go, "Oh, I knew it was going to be her or him."
Yeah.
And so as it goes along, I never know who did it.
Yeah.
And so I take myself down roads and go, come on back. And I leave it there and leave it in the book. It's like, other people did this too, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
And so it kind of creates itself. So if I were to put it in there, in the last book that I did, The Dead of Winter, I did not know that I had been leaving myself who did it all along the way.
Oh,
I had been leaving clues for
wow.
myself all along the way. And I was like, oh my gosh. When I went back to read it, I said, oh, this guy did it. And it was pointed out. And so you see, now I'm really getting into it.
No, I love that. I love that. Yeah. No, please.
Yeah, well, I'm just that was all I was going to say, because I don't want to give it away.
Of course.
Because it's a good story.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled to know that I did that.
Yeah. I love that you said that you're leaving clues, but in ways like you're leaving clues for yourself.
I know.
That I love. Oh, that to me is.
Yeah.
And you guys, you have to keep in mind is that one of the genres I do not write in is mystery. So I just think Diane is like particularly magical. So I love that. Well, so you've been leaving clues for yourself all along. Okay, question 9. I think you've answered this, but we'll ask it anyway. Trying to keep with the Mystery Writers of America here. Do you always know who the culprit is before you start writing, or does it sometimes surprise you?
Right,
Yeah.
So it surprises me.
Of course.
Every time.
Every time.
Every single time. Right.
And even with number 1.
Oh, yes.
I
Oh, yes. Yes.
You found the process that works for you, and you were just like, that's it, I'm staying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah.
Question 10. We're halfway through, you guys. Have you ever had to change the ending of a mystery because it didn't work? Or I want to expand on that one, Diane, or even go back in and tweak details to make it work with an ending.
I don't think that I changed it.
Yeah.
I added more
Mm-hmm.
because it couldn't be that simple. And so I had to add more details around it.
Yes.
And that helped it be believable.
Mm-hmm.
And
They are.
So
They really are, you guys.
that's kind of what I'm finding out.
Yeah.
Is, I can't, if I get there, it's gotta be more of an explanation.
Right.
So that's how I see it.
Of the 4 books, so Taken by Surprise is book 1, and Capable of Murder is book 2, A Possible Danger is book 3, and then The Dead of Winter is book 4, and actually, in connection with The Dead of Winter, there is actually Dead of Winter, the tabletop game, which is like a storytelling game where you can play as Alan Sharp or another character, and you're actually trying to solve a mystery, which I love this because I love that tabletop gaming has come back with such a positive bent with so many different genres for all kinds of folks. Of the 4 books, though, and you also wrote quite a bit of story text for The Dead of Winter.
Right.
Which of them did you find the mystery was the most difficult to write?
A Possible Danger.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That was
It's book 3, you guys.
that was one that in book 1 and book 2.
Yeah.
These were real events. They happened.
The crime
Down the
really
street-
happened?
The crime happened down the
Mhm.
street from where I lived, in the community where I lived, and so I had the story already.
Yeah.
And so because I had that, I could, develop the storyline.
Yeah.
But Possible Danger, I didn't have that. I just had experiences that I wanted to develop,
Yeah.
and things that, as an author, as a person in the world, I worried about. And so there was some online dating and possible danger. And I thought, I really do worry about these ladies going out there and putting themselves out there. So I knew that I wanted to include that, but I was making it up. Took me longer to write it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to think it through. And once I got the idea, then I kind of, okay, well, I like these characters a lot, and I'm going to send this guy to dance class, and he's going to figure out, he's going to be part of this, and it all started evolving.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Oh, you guys, it's never easy. Even
No,
the
it isn't.
books,
No, it isn't easy.
Diane makes it feel effortless because the pacing of the books is so good. There's never parts where I get into a scene and go, "Ooh, this is rough. This must have been hard to write." It just flows. But I know the amount of work that goes into it. Plus, you have your beta readers.
Right.
So that I think is important, and you work with an editor. All right. Okay. So, question 11, you guys. What kind of research do you do to make sure the details in your mysteries are accurate?
I do so much research. I just research like crazy. I stop everything. I go, wait, what are the duties of the policeman? Let me look up all this stuff. Wait, what is that? What would someone do for that? And I will look up a person who is similar to this.
Yeah.
And like, what would they wear? How would they, where would they dance? Where would they, go to dinner?
Yeah.
Where is a restaurant in Boston? I need to look it up. Where are the restaurants?
Yeah.
Okay, then the legal part. I had someone read it, all the mysteries, to make sure that the legal parts were correct.
Yes.
And that the gun was the correct size, and things that I had no idea about.
Right.
And I was corrected in several places, and thank goodness I was, because it made it more real.
Right, and you never want to, for a reader that maybe knows about that kind of thing, you never want to take them out of the story with something that they just know is inaccurate. That's always rough. It can really ruin a story for a reader that just happens to know about, whatever, fly fishing or scuba diving.
Exactly.
Or, yeah.
I had a reader, a wonderful guy who just read my books.
Yeah.
And he said, I really like them, but I used to live in Boston, and I have a few corrections. And I'm going, okay. And, he said, this would never happen. Or he said, don't forget the Red Sox. He said, you got to put that in there. And, I was like, you are so adorable. I love this.
I love that. Yeah.
So,
talking to like an expert of each city where Alan is. Yeah.
I know it. I know. That was so cute.
That. Okay, all right, okay, we're learning a little bit more here and there, you guys. Okay, let's see. Question 12. Do you ever leave clues or Easter eggs in your books for your fans, your readers to find?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah. See,
I know there
I was
people
curious
do.
about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I know
Yeah.
others who do it too. I don't, but yeah.
No. And they can't find themselves.
Yeah.
There's no, I come from a big family. I said, guys, you'll never see yourself in my books.
Yeah.
So don't look.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I really like you saying that, because I think there's also, it gives you a freedom. If you're like, guys, just because I have a blonde and you're blonde, it's not you, okay? I'm not putting my family in the book. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that's how you keep your sisters as your good beta readers.
I know.
That's right.
True.
There you go. Okay, so let's see. Number 13. How do you balance the puzzle aspect of the mystery with character development? Oh, so how do you balance, the nuts and bolts of the mystery itself with the emotional, the character, the emotional intelligence, the development of the character, the way the character's changing over time, Alan and other characters?
That's a kind of a tough question because, he's a detective. This is what he does. This is his job.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be about the investigation.
Mhm.
And so I guess I don't know what would be the answer to that.
Do you ever have, and again, I know the answer to this, you guys, but I'm trying to get answers for you. Do you ever have Alan, do we see Alan off the job?
Oh, yes. So he's got a normal life. And I had read somewhere where someone had said, gee, I wish I knew a detective. I could read about a detective who actually had, a normal life, who would come and go and have to eat and have to go home and, have a glass of wine and meet with his son. And he said it'd be nice to know that they were normal and human beings. And so I thought, oh, good, because that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help create this likable, normal guy who wonders, what's next for him.
Right.
And who struggles with all the changes in life.
Yes.
All of the changes, the computers, the internet, and he can't work his phone, and things like this that, aging people like myself, then you just have a hard time knowing how to do that.
It's interesting because even right before we started filming, Diane and I were talking about how much we're so grateful for GPS. When we were first learning to drive, there was no GPS. And, we were talking about a kind of bound map called a Thomas Guide that was like, oh, mwah, those were the best. You could get anywhere with those Thomas Guides. But I think that is one of the things that makes the Sharp Crime Mysteries so unique, is actually that there is that character development. You do get to see Alan as a man and also as a human being coming face to face with his own mortality, and beyond that, because it's not just like, oh, I'm past the halfway mark to 100. No, it's about, I have changed. I cannot do what I did at 16, 17, 19.
Right.
How am I moving forward? How do I function in this new and ever-changing world and in this new and ever-changing body? And I think that aging, characters aging, is something that is not often.
Absolutely, yes.
And is it because authors are just human and maybe a lot of authors are scared themselves of aging? But I remember years ago, Diane, when I was on tour in Boston, interestingly enough, I had a joint event with an author named Kate Allen. And she was dealing with a real life diagnosis in her own life of MS. And I also knew her publisher, and she said, and I pitched to the publisher, I would like the main character, she also wrote mysteries, by the way. Hers were a little bit with the erotic bent, you guys. I would like my main character to realize, get an MS diagnosis. And I won't say who in Kate's life was really, really, don't do it, that's a mistake, nobody's gonna read that. And I was in my late teens. And so, and I'm thinking, wow, that's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
That, I would read that. That is, wow, I've never seen anything like that. And I think that's one of the things that I really loved about Alan, is right from the beginning, he's like, dang it.
Yeah. Too many burgers.
Yeah,
I put him on a diet in the
Yes.
third book.
Yes.
You know, I say, come on, Alan, you got to do this. You got to get healthy. You know, he's back at his doctor going, well, I guess I better do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yep.
If we want Alan to keep solving crime, he needs to stop solving that Big Mac problem.
Right.
Or he needs to solve the Big Mac problem. Okay. All right. Question 14. Do you have a favorite mystery trope that you explore in your books?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say. That's I thought that was kind of an interesting question. I'm like, why would I explore a trope? But okay, all right.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked it up. I
Yep.
saw that question. I said, wait a minute. Let me explore that myself.
Yes.
And I said, nope, I don't.
And
I
when
don't
you
do that.
were doing your research about mystery tropes, did any mystery trope that you happened upon surprise you? Like, oh, I didn't know that was a trope, or
It all surprised me.
Really?
Because
Oh, I love that.
that word surprises me. And I have to always go, what in the world? Because it's like a little trip. You're tripping something.
Yes.
And so all these metaphors, and you know, it's like this, and you know, it sounds like these, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Where I go, golly, I just don't write like that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
And nor would Alan think like that. You know, that would be a little, I don't know, out of character.
It would be out of character for him. I was going to say, I think the only trope that I know of that has anything to do with Alan Sharp is a trope that is totally the fault of the publisher and even myself, and that is Diane has a beautiful banner, and we'll show it at the end of this video, you guys. And it's one of my favorite author banners that our authors have. And what it is like an old style detective's door with like the frosted glass, and it says Detective Sharp on it. I think that is the only mystery stereotype that Alan has anything to do with, and I just love it. So only the banner is the answer. All right, so for question number 15 of the 20 questions to ask a mystery author, have any real life events or cases influence the plots of your books? Two of them, right?
Exactly. The murder happened down the street from me, taken by surprise. And it has stayed with me for a long time. And so I thought, you know, I've got to write about it.
Yeah.
And it was it's a good mystery.
Yeah.
And it was not solved. I solved it in my book.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. But it was never solved. In this, also, I was in the community. The two murders happened down the block from my house. And in fact, our house was filmed on the news saying this is just a rural community where this murders happened.
Yeah.
And so, yes, absolutely.
So, and then for a possible danger,
Right, that was, no.
not a real life event.
Not a real life event.
What? Because it was, am I remembering correctly? Like you were saying, this is about the dating app.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So, and was it just you thinking about that? It seems so dangerous to me.
It seems so dangerous.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Now, for Dead of Winter, what inspired the case in this one?
Again, what I care about,
Yeah.
the homeless.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write about it because I was renting a small office.
Yeah.
And I was on the second floor in this little town, and I could look down on the street, and there were homeless people occasionally walking by, or I would walk by them, and it does break your heart. And I thought, I'm going to start researching this.
Yeah.
And there was a wonderful book that I read about the homeless in Boston. And I thought, this is going to be my next book. And in that book, there's also a policeman gets killed. It starts off with a policeman getting killed.
Yeah.
And that too was something that I thought would bring Alan some other concerns. Of course, the death of a policeman is a very big event.
Yeah.
And solve that alongside with walking the streets and seeing all the homeless people.
Yeah.
So I made it up.
Yeah.
It's still, it was something I'm concerned about.
Right, a seed from real life.
Right.
Yeah, grew this particular garden. Yeah. All right, so let's see here. Question 16. Oh, what is your process for naming? It's for naming suspects and victims, but naming characters in general. I would like to actually hear that.
I know my sisters asked me that the other day.
Yeah.
We were on our little vacation together.
They just want more reassurance that it's never going to be them.
It's not going to be them. They go, how do you think of these names? And I said, it doesn't automatically come to me. It absolutely doesn't. I go 100 boys' names, and I go down it, or Spanish names, and I go down that list, and I kind of wait, and then finally go, oh, that one. And there will be times that I'll be watching something on TV,
Yeah.
and someone's name will come up, and I'll write it down on my notebook.
A
go,
name collector.
I will use that name. I like that name. I can see the character.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I've known authors who will literally go to used bookstores and buy like as many baby books as from different eras.
Right.
Like this one was published 20 years ago, and this one was for that kind of reason. Or if they meet someone with a really unique name, there's an author who works for the press who will say. He'll say to them, "Oh, I would like to use your name someday. I promise. It won't be anything about you, nothing about, but I love your name. I'm going to use it just so you know." I get such a kick out of that. It's I will say though, what about for Alan?
I was just going to
Yeah.
mention this. That was not my friend's name. And how did I ever think, because it's close to his name.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought, but Alan Sharp,
Yes.
the Sharp, that came to me. I went to school with a girl back in college a long time ago, and she had Sharp was her name.
Mhm.
And I liked her so much. And so when I was thinking of a name, I don't know why she came to mind. And so I thought, Alan Sharp, that would be a good name.
I love that.
But it just evolved. It's very, like I said, it's very close to my friend's name.
It's a strong name, and I again, you guys, I know that might sound a little odd to some folks, but it is. It's a strong name, and interesting. It's like I trust him.
Yeah.
I just trust him.
That's what my sister
Alan will
said.
figure it out. There's something about maybe it's the Alan. Now, admittedly, my youth pastor growing up was named Alan, and I adored him, and so I often wonder, is that what it is? Different names
Right.
spark different memories in all of us.
No.
Okay. Question 17, you guys. How do you decide on the perfect setting for your mysteries? Now, you live here in Washington.
Right.
But you did live in Boston.
I did live in Boston.
Yeah, and Alan lives in Boston.
Right.
But is it book 2?
Book 2 for
Book 2.
Came back here.
Yes, book 2 is in the Pacific Northwest. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, you would know from this beautiful cover. But then, then he's back in Boston. Yes,
Back in Boston. Right.
So,
Right.
why did you decide Boston?
Well, because
And-
the murder took place where I lived.
In real life.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah.
so I could envision it. And I could
Yes.
see it. I know the streets of Boston. I walked it back and forth to work.
Yeah.
For over a year, and I know it,
Mhm.
and I know the environment,
Mhm.
and so it was easy for me to do that. Now my kids have said, "Mom, why don't you just go back and see it?" I go, "Well, I don't think it would be the same. It's going to be. I'm doing it from memory,
Right.
and I like that memory of my Boston."
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
if I went, I would be like, "Oh, look at all these buildings going up." It's like I still want to keep it.
Because your Boston is Alan's Boston.
It's Alan's Boston.
Yeah.
Right,
That
right.
makes sense.
And the second book, the Capable of Murder, I lived on a small island for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I knew it very, very well.
Yeah.
And I knew the community. And so it was very easy to
Yeah.
go into that. But being back in Boston for the third novel, I had to think about it. I learned to look it up. I
Mhm.
researched, like, let's go back to Cambridge and let's walk down the streets. There is on the internet, there is a walk through Boston.
Oh.
Someone is walking through. I have taken the whole walk with them. Through the Commons, Government Center, all the way down, all the stores, everything. And I saw Copley Plaza, saw it all.
That's incredible. Will you give us a sneak peek about book 5? Where does book 5 take
It
place?
takes place in Boston.
Do you think Alan will ever travel elsewhere?
I don't know.
Have to see
You know,
where
he's
the-
aging, he's getting older.
Yeah.
And his knees are hurting. And so I'm not sure that he's gonna want to travel, but Maggie has moved closer.
See, I kind of like this because you just yourself said, no, I don't want to go back. I
Yeah.
don't want to travel. And it just, hey, it
Yeah.
works. If Alan travels just once in book 2, I'm fine with that because he came here. So,
Yeah, 'cause he came here.
all right, so let's see. Question 18. Do you ever get stuck trying to solve your own mystery while you're writing? How do you overcome getting stuck? I know you've kind of touched on that, but
Yeah. Like I said, I give it time.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm stuck, I give it time. But it's in my dreams. It's in my head. I'm walking with it, and so it gradually comes. Now I have thrown out some. I do that, and I will like cut it out, put it on a different piece of paper, and say I don't know if I need you or not.
yeah.
And I do have paperwork that is filled with things I did not use. And story scenes I did not use, but that I really liked.
Yes.
And I said, well, I'm gonna keep them because maybe I'll use them for something else. But I don't, what was the question?
It's okay. When you get stuck.
Oh, when I get stuck.
Yeah, do
Yeah,
you ever get
here.
stuck? Which, yes, you said
Yeah.
absolutely get stuck. And how
Yeah.
do you overcome getting stuck? Giving it that breather.
I give it up,
Yeah.
I cut it out and put it
Yeah.
someplace else. And then I review it. But I know that happens. That happens to all authors, that they get to a place where they go, what in the world is going to happen? You know, and these people are inside you, and you worry about them.
Yeah.
And so as you develop them, they're breathing for
Yeah.
you. So, yeah.
See, you guys, one of the things that's really amazing about this is like Diane's experience is she shares in common with other Blue Forge Press authors where they feel like their characters guide their story. And what's kind of cool to be sitting across from Diane today is like, for instance, I don't write that way at all. Every scene is outlined meticulously. I have never been stuck, but the characters do not speak to me. You know, I tell them what they're going to say. You know, I have a story that I'm telling, and I shape the characters to the story. So very different. And I have always been, ever since I was very small, a little bit jealous of these authors that, because I feel like, oh, you have all these wonderful friends in your head, you know, that are telling you these amazing adventures. But you talking about taking out scenes and just saying, boy, I love that, but it's just not right, you know. It makes me think of a class that I took, but I did 2, you know this, Diane, and you guys probably know this as well, but I did 2 national tours, and in between the 2 tours, I took a course with an author, a Lambda Award-winning author, Rebecca Brown, and she talked about a theory that the teachers at the School of the Arts that I went to really pushed hard, and that is this idea of throwing out your first chapter. That as an author, we cannot become so enamored of whatever, the first chapter, a scene, even a character or a subplot, a B plot, that we are not willing to just go, that is bogging the story down, take it out. So it doesn't matter whether you're writing from an outline or the characters are right there creating the story with you, you have to be able to self-edit. And I think that is another reason why there is no fluff, there is no dead weight in any of Diane's mysteries. It is tight, and that pacing is just driving you forward. Alan, you feel his urgency, and in some cases, you feel him fighting against the limits of his own body. And that, I think, for anyone over the age of 30 is, you really hit that, and it comes across so authentic, and I do really love that. Okay, question 19 of 20. What is the most surprising piece of feedback you have received from a reader, a beta reader, a fan, an editor about the books?
I was at a party the other day, and I saw someone who I had known years ago, and she said, "Oh, I've read all of your books," and I was so surprised that she did. I didn't know that we hadn't spoken about it. And she said, "Your character development is so good. I am so intrigued with your plots. I think you've done a really good job." And I was like, wow. Because this is someone who I never expected would even read the books. And so I was thrilled. I was thrilled with that.
Yeah.
The feedback, you know, you give it to people who you like, and they like you, and they're very, very nice about it. I like that, you know, it's always good. The people who don't read my books, who have them and don't read them, hello, brothers.
You guys are going to be in the books one day.
I might think about that because you're not reading them.
Come on, come on, guys.
Then I think that, you know, it's tough because, you know, how's your book going? You know, and I'm going, oh, it's going really great. You know, you haven't read it. So that's tough. But I just appreciate the fact that people read it. That's all I want to say is that thank you. I tell them thank you for reading my book.
Yes. It means so much, you guys.
So much.
It means the world. I have another author that you and I have both worked with in the past. She tells an incredible story that I often steal from her and share about sharing work with her mother and her mother reading the work and then coming back to her and going, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out if I was the you in your, you know, in your work. And I'm just like, you guys, that's the worst thing to say to anyone. That is not what it is about.
No.
That is not what it's about. If you think it's you, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
Right.
But that's right. No, your brothers should definitely read the books, you guys, or the next you is going to be all of you. So there we go. I think that's only fair. So, and you know, what you should do, Diane, if they continue, even after all these good warnings, and kind of lightly begging from Diane's friend, for you guys, can you read the books? Come on, be good brothers. Is she wouldn't make you guys the victim. She would make you the bad guys. You don't want to be the killers, you guys. Come on. All right, question number 20 on our 20 questions to ask a mystery author. This is a silly one. Do you have a favorite character you've created and why? And you can't say Alan.
Oh no. Oh. I don't hear anything. Maggie? I like Maggie.
Yeah.
I really like Enrique.
Yes.
I really like Enrique.
Yes.
And he just is such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he's a partner. I mean, he's Alan's partner, and he listens and he works the case with him, but it kind of from the background. You know, he's by his side. Yeah. But I like everything that he brings to the office.
I really, really like him.
And so he's a family man and solid. And I really like him. I know Alan trusts him, and so obviously as the reader, you know, we trust him, but yeah, I did, just like instantly. I was like, oh yeah, no, he's got all his priorities straight. I really like that. I really like him a lot.
And then I wanted to end tonight, you guys. Of course, Diane, would you like to read a little bit? And actually, Diane, would you like to read a little bit, even if it's just like the first 5 pages, not from the first book?
Oh, not from the first book.
What if you read from one of the others? Without giving something away. Do you think it's possible?
Maybe the last one, Dead of Winter, because that starts off kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hand you that, and then while Diane is just getting familiar with that, I wanted to show you guys. So this is the Dead of Winter tabletop game And it comes with everything you need, so you don't have to go out and buy one of these crazy D20 dice. But what I really, really love is there's an autographed card, a card autographed by Diane in with every game deck. And here is Alan Sharp. You can actually play Alan. I know you guys probably can't see this very well, so I'll do some close-ups at the end of the video. I'll ask Brienne to do some close-ups, but you can play Alan, you can play Enrique. Fantastic. Connie. Tell us a little bit about Connie.
Connie was introduced in this book, in the Dead of Winter, and she is an officer who is studying to be a detective. And in fact, in the 5th book, she becomes a detective. And she is one of the solid officers that Ellen can depend on.
Yeah.
And really does a great job, and hopes that she can keep up.
Yeah.
So she also has a family and things that she has to worry about, and come to work and look around the office and make sure that everything is done equally.
Yeah.
And she's
because
solid.
Connie and Enrique, they're both younger than Alan.
Yes.
Pretty considerably younger. So
Yeah.
that's interesting too. The dynamic is handled really well. And I'll actually show you guys those 3 cards toward the end of the video, but would you read a little bit for us, Diane? So this is from book 4, you guys, from the Sharp Crime Mystery series, The Dead of Winter.
Friday, January 24th. Winter in Boston. Dark in the morning and dark on the commute home. Moderate to heavy snow was in the late January forecast and would most likely impact the late day travel. Streets were already icy and cold, and people were bundled against the chill of winter, the chill of the wind that whipped around and through them, lowering the air to below freezing. Luckily, the subways were running on time. A homeless man stumbled onto the downtown train and settled into a seat by the window. His weather-beaten face and musty clothes annoyed the commuters, but he appeared unconcerned. He rode the subway as far as he could on days like this to unclench his hands against the biting cold and dry his soaked shoes. The lights flickered as the car slowed to a stop, and the man glanced out the window and saw a body lying motionless at the end of the platform. Without thinking, he jumped up and waited anxiously for the door to open, and then he pushed through and sprinted down the tunnel to help. The scene was gruesome. The body of a man was slumped on the concrete floor, bloodied and beaten, with strangulation marks around his neck. The homeless man took his pulse in case he was still alive. He was dead. Afraid that someone would think he's involved, he yelled to alert anyone exiting the cars, but no one was paying attention to the scene. He searched the pockets for the victim's ID and found a police badge. He was a cop. Waves of confusion caused the man to panic and fear that he would be blamed for this murder. Charging up the steps to State Street from the subway exit, he ran into a crowd of commuters who were battling the weather. He began to walk briskly, hoping to make the traffic light, trying not to fall on the slippery street and bring attention to himself. But then he remembered the strangled face of the person he left behind, and he started shouting at everyone to get out of his way. He weaved through the crowd, changing speed, cutting left and right to avoid groups of people, forcing himself to focus, trying not to panic. He dodged and then tried to bulldoze his way through, shouting the whole time. He held tight to his backpack full of all of his belongings, which was coming loose from his shoulders. The bedraggled man came addled and stumbled into the nearest open door, shouting, "Officer down, detective down," and collapsed onto the floor.
She has such talent, you guys. Diane, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing again the incredible journey that has brought you to this place. I think that of all of the fictional detectives, Alan Sharp is legendary.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, and I have to be careful because I know Blue Forge Press does a whole original Sherlock series, but you guys, Thomas, forgive me, Diane, you've got my vote.
Oh, thank you.
If I'm murdered, I want Alan to solve
Yeah,
it.
there you
I mean,
go.
there you go. I mean, that's
He's your
what
guy.
it comes
He's your
to.
guy.
So you guys, you can pick up Taken by Surprise at Charlie's Queer Books. You can also find it at King's Books. You can find it at any Barnes & Noble. But what I really love is that here at Charlie's, without any extra fees or ridiculous stuff like that, you can find Taken by Surprise, but he can also order for you books 2, 3, or 4. So how fantastic is that? That is one-stop shopping, you guys. So, you know, maybe shop independent this season and get yourself an incredible gift, a set of 4 Sharp Crime Mysteries. Thank you again, Diane, and thank you, Brianne, for running camera for us today.